Welcome back. You are listening to a special episode. This is Time Takes Time, and you're listening to The Connected Calm Life. My name is Lane Kennedy. I'm your host. But guess what? I have 4 other co-hosts today. I am thrilled to bring you this panel. We do this once a month where we gather long-term recovery and talk about what it's like. Why do we keep doing this? Why do we not pick up a drink? And how do we survive and thrive and get through life? And today I have Bert, Matthew, Scott, and Alysse. Why don't you guys take a moment and just introduce yourselves? Bert, why don't you start us off?
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation. I'm thrilled and a little nervous, but we'll make it through, right? So my name is Roberta Romero. Everyone calls me Bert. I am a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a wife, I'm an employee, and I'm an alcoholic in recovery. So long-term recovery for me. My story is, like many others, but I'm a television reporter at NBC King 5 here for many years, transitioned out into the nonprofit world, and now transitioned back in. So I'm back at King 5 and learning how to become a person who can work in the 21st century, which is quite difficult. I'm in long-term recovery. If you don't know that I'm in recovery, you don't know me. That's the bottom line.
How many years, Roberta?
On January 2nd, I celebrated 18 years of recovery.
Beautiful. All right. So we can just make it your name and, your sober date, and just keep it really short. This is an edit, just so you know. Go ahead, Matthew.
All right. My name is Matthew Taube. I see recovery for 16 years. December 21st, 2005 was my date. And I've been going strong and loving life ever since.
Beautiful. Thanks for being here. And Scott.
My name's Scott Gorman. I'm a person in long-term recovery beginning on August 20th, 1982.
I can't wrap my head around that sometimes still. I grapple with that. All right, Alysse, bring us up.
I'm the baby of the group. My name is Alysse Bryson. I'm the founder of the Sober Curator, and my sobriety date is May 1st, 2006.
Beautiful. So this is the month of February, and this will be wrapping around or coming out around, this holiday of Valentine's Day. And we're going to be talking about love today. And in sobriety, love has changed for me personally. I've had many renditions of love. I don't even know where to begin with this topic, but I'm going to start with this question of how long has it taken you to love yourself? Because I know for me, that word didn't make sense, right? But we're just going to massage into this conversation about love and how you found love, what it means to you. But this first question, how long has it taken you to love yourself? Matthew, you want to start us?
Absolutely. So how long has it taken to love myself? It took me a while, a couple of years, if not more. It was one thing to, go through recovery and stop drinking. And then from there, it's funny, at first you kind of had I had that euphoric high where I was like, oh my God, this is the best. And I felt like I loved myself. And then I did, but then everything that I was avoiding and that had happened in the wake of all that I was doing started coming back, and all those feelings of self-doubt and insecurities and why I was unhappy. It all came flooding back. So it took a while, I say a couple of years, at least 7 or 8, to really kind of love myself again.
Isn't that something, how we think we're like on the path and, oh yeah, I'm good. I love myself. This is all good. And then something comes. What was it that changed you, Matthew?
A lot of it was in terms of getting back to loving myself. What changed me the most was understanding that everything that had happened to me up until then it was my doing, but how I felt wasn't my fault. My insecurities, things I had to work on, right? It was really understanding that, I was who I was, and looking in the mirror and seeing somebody looking back and going, for a long time, looking back at that person going, I don't know who you are. I don't like you. I didn't even see myself, right? You look at yourself, you don't even recognize who's there, clean or not. And then it was looking at myself finally going, you got to figure this out. You've got to be happy with who you are and comfortable in your own skin and start really getting to know you. And that took a while. With therapy as well, it took a while to figure out who I was and then start to like that person, because it's really easy to look back at all the things that I had done and really not like that person, and understand that I no longer that person was there. It was a part of me, but it isn't who I am now. Yeah. And I would have that anxiety coming. Like I would think back, even now it comes every once in a while. I'll think back to something that I had done. I'll get that awful, kind of sinking feeling of dread and feel awful for what had happened. And then be like, you know what? It was 20 years ago. I can't be mad for what happened 20 years ago. Because in the grand scheme of things, that 20-year ago moment that is making me feel bad about what I've done or about myself, really, it's an electric current in my brain. It's gone. It's way far behind. It happened and it's gone. So it's understanding and realizing that I'm okay with who I am now, and I'm allowed to make mistakes and not implode.
Yeah, so true. Roberta, how long has it taken you to fall in love with yourself?
That's a really loaded question for me. And my head's buzzing through it. And I'm going to tell you, I actually kind of approach it the same way I do, one day at a time. And I have to make this choice to love myself over and over again. My low self-esteem and insecurity is with me, is part of who my makeup is. And so living in that kind of fear is really unhealthy for me, but it's my go-to place. So I have to choose it all the time. And again, being, that 1982, that was the year I graduated from high school. But going back to those old days of the way I was born and raised, this whole deferment, I always put everybody ahead of me, always. When I look at that list of all the things that you're supposed to take care of, especially when I was getting sober, they're like, you need to put your name you need to put your name at the top. And I'm like, I didn't even know I could put my name on the list. Oh, okay. So not only do I have to write my name down there, I got to put it on the top. So, it's just a whole mixed ball. And this is a really powerful question, because I've not thought of it for myself. Yeah. I'll ask sponsees or I'll ask other people, but for myself, when do I love myself? So I guess I keep it really quiet, but close. Because it's almost like pride, oh, she loves herself. You know what I mean? So what do you have to love? It's still a real wrestling moment for me. So I would say that right now, I love myself. Right now, this moment.
Right now.
I can answer you.
That's all that matters. Right now. This conversation is all that matters.
Right?
Yeah. Scott, were you on the top of your list of loving yourself?
Lane, all I got to say around that is it's a work in progress. Mm-hmm. It is a work in progress. I will have, as I reflect, I use this analogy. If I saw somebody talking to my 9-year-old or my 12-year-old in a way that was violent or diminishing or threatening, I would do whatever it took to stop that from happening. And then a long timer years ago said to me, "Hey kid, why is it okay for you to talk that way to yourself? Why is it not okay to talk to your children?" And that was the beginning of rewiring the default of, "You suck, Scott." It hurts my heart. And that has slowly changed. And do I still fall back in that? Certainly. But I have a big tool belt to be able to deal with that. So that's what I think about that.
So are you loving yourself today?
100%. And I started had to do, the Post-it notes on the, it had to start it started real fundamentally like that.
Yeah.
My whole recovery journey is based on fundamentals, 100%.
Yeah. It does. It helps to have the little Post-it notes, the reminders by your bed, right? Because we have that negativity bias already set up inside, and years of drinking and using, it's harmful. It's really harmful. And so I like what you were just talking about, Scott, this, like, I wouldn't want anybody to talk to my kid that way. Like, I wouldn't allow it at all. But meanwhile, inside, I can go there in a second. And it's so painful to know that even in long-term recovery, it's still there and alive. And it's really like one moment to one moment, being in this present moment, that I can say, no, I'm not going to listen to that right now. Alysse, where are you on this scale? Are you loving yourself today?
I mean, I want to love myself today. It is a choice. I'm with Bert. It's a daily choice that I make. And I've often have, when I get down on myself, I've had friends been like, don't talk about my friend that way. Don't talk about my friend that way. And you're right. It's like, for some reason, we get really protective of everybody around us that we care about, but we don't look at ourselves through that same lens. And as you're talking about notes, this happened before I got sober, but I was going through one of my 800th breakups. And I was devastated because, every single one has been the one. And I was devastated. And a really good friend of mine, her name is Petra, and she was getting ready to leave and go back to the Czech Republic where she was from. And she really wanted me to, like, get it together and celebrate her time before she was leaving and not be so focused on this breakup. But I was just, woe is me, woe is me. And she had a key to my house. And I came home after work one day, and she had taken 8x10 sheets of paper, hundreds of them, and written positive affirmations about me and plastered my whole house with them, to the point that my kid was like, Mom, did somebody break in? But instead of stealing stuff, they wallpapered. Like, it was everywhere. But, and I left him up for weeks. And I did just that constant reminder of telling myself, you are good enough, and you do love yourself and you are worthy. Because that imposter syndrome, it sneaks in. Like, I just called Bert last week and I was like, like, I can't, I'm not. And, had we been in person and not over the phone, she would have had every right to, like, slap me across the face. But, even in long-term recovery, we need those constant reminders, because it's to love ourselves. It always feels like, for me, it always feels like a battle. Like, it's a choice I have to make every day. And it's not an easy one. Mm-hmm. Staying sober is now, for the most part, an easy choice, but loving myself, that takes a lot more effort.
It takes a lot of work, right? It just does. That's what I'm hearing from each of you. And Alysse, I was just thinking about walking into your house and having all of those signs everywhere. But before that, I was thinking about the breakup and relationships that we get into. And when we have our hearts broken in recovery. I know I've had, anybody else had their heart broken in recovery? Hands raised? Nobody. Okay. Matthew, you're not.
Just me? Really? Seriously? Just me? Well, I've done it enough for all of you then. That's fine.
So I've had my heart broken in recovery, and it has really been this catalyst to love myself even more deeply, and a catalyst to understand people unconditionally. And I think there's something here that I want us to investigate, because a lot of our listeners are earlier in recovery and they're going in and out of relationships. And, there's this saying of like, maybe it's not a good idea to get into a relationship early in your recovery. What do you guys think about that statement? I mean, is that a loving act to get into a relationship, or is it a dangerous, slippery act? What do you guys think about that?
I'm going to jump on this one. I remember it being suggested not to date anyone in my first year of recovery. And I still struggle with rules applying to me, but they most certainly did not in that first year. And so that is a suggestion that I did not follow. And in hindsight, oh, I wish I would have. I really wish I would have. I really dated, meaning I slept with some very questionable characters in early recovery, many of which were sitting in church basements right next to me, right? And looking back now at the woman I am now and looking at that woman that I was, I wish she would have waited, because you don't know what you don't know. And as you work through your recovery, regardless of what your journey is and what your process is to work through things, whether it's 12-step or therapy or what have you, you will change. And the things that you come to love and want, the type of person that you want to be with will change. And so that young Alysse in early recovery was not drinking, was not using drugs, but she was still picking the same guys that were never the right fit for me.
And I would add that for me, especially that first year of recovery, I'm looking for any kind of distraction I can. So I am still married to the same person, and I didn't get into any relationship at the time, but I did see that, it's just really easy to distract yourself. And proven fact that the feelings of love, if you look at a brain scan, the dopamine release is equal to a hit of cocaine. Mm-hmm. So, I'm an alcoholic or addict, and I want to feel better, and I can't use this and I can't use that, but love is right there. So boom. So I just think that it's just a very delicate balance. And again, getting back to that love, or putting yourself first, that first year of putting you on that list and then really taking care of yourself without the distraction and really building that foundation, I think is just so important. But, I can understand the slippery slope, Alysse, exactly what you said. I mean, they're all here and you're just you're bonding. The pink cloud is so delicious, and to share it with someone else, you can get why that would happen. But yeah, I highly recommend against it personally, but life is life.
Mm-hmm.
I'll jump in there, Lane. I think the challenge around it, especially around what Bert was talking about, I want to change the way that I feel. Mm-hmm. To this moment. I mean, if I don't like something, if I'm challenged on the home front with my bride, I want to find something to change instead of being able to sit with it. And I think getting involved early, especially with other people in recovery around the rooms, it's dangerous for the person that's in long-term recovery. It's dangerous because there's some dishonesty involved. There's
okay, let's go there. I'm gonna ask you to go there. What does that mean? It's dangerous for the person in long-term recovery. What does that mean?
Because that person is being less than noble if it's not an upfront relationship, if it's obviously consensual, but if the person is not honest with the person that they're involved with, mm-hmm. and if the and not in a predatory way, but more in a vulnerable way, mm-hmm. and not being on, I'm in love with this guy. I'm in love. Oh my God. And no, I'm in love with how this feels. So right. I don't have to look in the mirror of what's being just blasted into my face, and in terms of being abstinent and not having that go-to default, which for me was 151 and cocaine and amphetamines. So if I don't have that, I want to look for something else, but I don't know if that makes
it does. It makes a lot of sense, but there's like this invisible line, I think, when we're newly in recovery, or at least there was for me, an invisible line. And I felt like I was falling in love with my friends, right? I was just like, oh my God, she's the best. Oh my God, he's the best, right? Like there was this, because I had never felt this kind of kindred sensibility, this connection, right? So how do you move that to the side and get really honest, right? And you have this old timer who's, trying to assist and guide, but they fall in love too. It's like, it's a very tricky place. So how do we walk through this, Matthew?
So this is an area I'm not well versed in. So I'll give some history on this. I was married when I went into recovery, and still married to the same person. So for me, it was more of not that it was falling in love again, because again, I was angry at myself. There was a whole self-loathing going on at the same time. But I'm gonna say, like, looking at meetings I'd be in and looking at it from just an insider, I guess, where I wasn't going to get involved with anybody because, that would just complicate my life even more than it already was. See, now I was married. So adding another relationship probably wouldn't have been the best idea on a good day. But again, that's also part of the excitement. So it's funny where we want to have that excitement as well. We want to have something to do. And what I ended up doing on an aside was throwing a surprise birthday party for my wife. And I got to sneak around and do all the things that nobody knew about, got to hide things again, because that was that rush, right?
Yeah.
So looking at it from, the elders and the long-term people in sobriety, guiding the way, and I see it more as a taking advantage of, because they know better. We know better. Like, I know if I wasn't in a relationship and I was, mentoring other people or sponsoring other people, that's like a line of taking advantage of people. That's how I would see it, right? Because there is that line, and because we want that excitement still, like that, all the pleasure centers that light up when things are great. It's that, and let's be honest, that's any relationship, whether you're in recovery or not. Those first few months are the best. I have no idea what happens in the first 5 months of a relationship. So imagine being in recovery. You're like, it's like 15 times more potent than all that. So
I love that. I was just thinking about, like, you hiding things for your wife, right? That kind of rush that I know that I needed in my early recovery. I remember telling my sponsor, I was like, I need something.
Yeah.
What?
I have my best friend who also was in recovery about a year or two before myself. We were in Montreal to go visit him and his wife, and I was planning a surprise party then, and he looked at me and he said, "How much are you loving planning this party?" I'm like, "It's the best." He's like, "Just feels so good." Like, he goes, "You can become a party planner for surprise party for everybody now, because you get to hide everything again." I'm like, it's exactly what it was. It was that excitement, and that only I knew it, right? And it was that rush. It's crazy. It's freaking crazy.
So let's give some ideas for our listeners to get that rush, right? Like I was told, well, I had that stalking problem. I've talked about stalking before on the show. And, a mentor, a very wise woman, said, you need to stop doing that. And I said, well, what else can I do? Because I'm like, I need that feeling, I need to. And she's like, well, stop wearing panties for a week and tell me what that's like. Right? Like, she was just like giving me ideas. What are some of the ideas that we can share, like to rev people up, to get them excited, to live on the edge? Because, we don't have to die, right? We don't have to get boring and glum. Like, what are some exciting things that we can share that you've done in the past?
Anyone want to jump in on that one? You're asking me?
Anybody.
I'll go with, I got sober when I was 20. And so I never really kissed a girl sober. I never danced really sober. I never went to a ball game sober. I was under the influence on the daily. Morning wake and bake, and away we go. And whatever else can go into the body. So everything was a whole new experience. And then finding a bunch of folks, we called ourselves in East Lansing, Michigan, where I got sober, these young punk drunks. So we would play pinball back in the 80s for hours. And, and there's 50,000 students in that town. And I thought everybody drank like I did. And then I found a whole new world, which didn't. And I started hanging with those and doing all those things that I could only do under the influence sober, and going to movies and just hanging and giggling. And remember those first snot bubble laughs? Those kinds of things that's what I encourage everybody who's in recovery. I've seen the arc over 39 years. Sobriety is kind of cool these days. It's kind of cool. So glad to be part of it.
Roberta?
I got to put this into perspective. Like, if I can get into my pajamas by 8 p.m. at night, I'm winning. So, I'm like, exciting, fun things. Oh, but my sober curator there, reading up on it, like, I wish, and maybe now, I'd have to get out of a comfort zone for sure. But like, I'm hearing about like sober dances, but like how there's some clubs and they close at 1 p.m., but then they reopen for people who want to go and dance and do it sober. Like, that sounds amazing to me. I really like the idea of that.
Roberta,
yeah.
When you were first in recovery, what were you doing? I mean, you playing chess every night? Like, what were you doing?
I was
doing something.
I was taking care of 4-year-old twin daughters and a 7-year-old son. So I was really busy with just parenthood.
Okay, so what did you do for fun? Did you like paint and color? I mean, that's something like there had to be something that you were like, I got to do something. I'm going crazy here.
I'm going to tell you that you're digging deep with me, and
you're doing great.
And you know what? Like, I'm already getting panicky. I'm started sweating a little bit. I am a slow learner, and I'm a person who, again, my codependency is as strong as my alcoholism. So doing for others was a big thing in the beginning for me. Yeah. And so that was fun for me until I realized that my kindness was actually manipulation. I'll do this for you if you'll do this for me, or you're going to owe me. Better yet, you owe me for the rest of your life. I'm going to be really nice to you so that you owe me. So my process was very slow. So doing things like that, I'm still discovering who I am. I really am. I was very stunted, to be honest with you. And you're asking questions that nobody's really asked me before, because I've never taken the time. There's this weird mix of a very shallow life that I live, and you're asking me questions about the depth, and I still like to stay up here on this top. Mm-hmm. So part 2, can we talk about love? Next February 2023, now that you're making me think about it.
Roberta, honestly, you're coming back.
I appreciate this. I'm like, oh, what did Alysse get me into?
Is okay. So you're bringing up a really valid point, Roberta. Bert, I'm going to call you Bert. I like that. Bert, in that a lot of people in recovery, in long-term recovery, stay up here. Mm-hmm. They don't dive down because it's easy to stay up here. This becomes the common up here. We don't have to look at all that stuff anymore, right? I'm done drinking and using, but there's all kinds of these other things, these habits, these that we neglect. And then we find burnout. And then we're like looking at our partners thinking, who are you? Why am I in this relationship? What do I need? Right? Like, there's all kinds of things that happen in our recovery that we need to explore. And this is just a tiny little exploration of that. And I love that you're bringing that up, because it's so, you're right on time. You're right. Like, that's perfect. Like, it's brilliant. So like, thank you for just being honest about that. Right. And I'm going to have you back on the show. Matthew, you're laughing.
It's so funny because it's, I'm trying to think the same thing. And back then I had, we had one kid, he was a year and a half, and it was like getting through sobriety. Then we had a second kid. So looking back, I think back to those first days, there was nothing I was doing crazy adventures, very much like Bert. I was a fitness professional, so I dove heavily back into fitness and making that my thing. And it was closer to when I started to love myself and really needed that something else. Because, my baseline became, wake up, brush teeth, work out. It was something normal. It was like drinking, really. It just became, it wasn't a transference, but it was just something that became a normal part of my day and my life. That then I wanted that excitement and being a fitness professional, being an instructor to begin with. My classes, we get 50, 60, 70 people in the class, and I would thrive off of being at the front of a room and being at the center, from a person who used to, drink to hide behind all that, where that was like my kind of my mask. And I could only talk to people and be in front of a crowd of more than two if I had a drink in my hand and all that. And here, so the rush of everyone staring at me, watching what I was doing, became such a dangerous thing for me because it terrified me. So that became my big thing to speak. Becoming a public speaker from there became what I wanted to do, to kind of push that envelope. And there was nothing more that anxiety, and it's awful. The anxiety and the excitement and that awful feeling that I'm going to throw up for days up until I actually go up on a stage, I actually look forward to. It's really weird.
So good though. It's so good. You went, like, you pushed that line. That's what I'm hearing from you. You just like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go through it. And now you're like above it. That's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Alysse, I know you're chomping. Oh, Scott, go for it.
And that's going on. I mean, today, what's my buzz today?
Yeah. What is it?
My biggest buzz today is being able to be vulnerable and real with another human being, with my feelings. That's my buzz. And in recovery, I'll speak for myself, I take it for granted. Yeah. And a lot of people can't make that, as you've heard it many times, that 12-inch journey from our head to our heart, because that's where I live, in my feelings. And then I just had a conversation before this call, and a guy opened up, and we do that on the daily with different people. But me and Nooch getting real, talking about, and it just fills me up and connects me to the human race. And I was that's what alcohol and drugs disconnected me from you and for whatever connection that I have with this universe. So
that's beautifully stated. It is that connection. I mean, it is that those conversations. Oh, so rich. Okay, Alysse.
I looked for a lot of distractions. And when I like something, I like it a lot. It was that way with drugs and alcohol. It's that way with dating. It's that way with shopping. So for me, I know that I threw myself into, I became a shopaholic. I was shopping all the time, putting outfits together. I still loved home decorations, thrifting. Oh my God, the thrill of the hunt for a treasure that, if finding a pair of shoes, thrifting that are like $20, but I know that they normally retail for $400. That makes me feel so good. And then I can't wait for someone to ask me, oh, I like those shoes. I can't just say thank you. I'm like, I got it for $20. I have to let people know, right? I also became a workaholic. And I jumped into this lifestyle magazine world, and I was dressing fancy and going to fancy parties and just, so I did a lot of things that on the surface weren't bad, but they kept me from really digging in and doing the real work on myself that I needed to do. They were like a Band-Aid. I remember the year that I got into adult coloring. I have 100 adult coloring books, every possible pencil, marker, colored pen. I still have all that crap. I'm also a hoarder, but did I need 100 adult coloring books that are $25 a pop? No, I don't. But those were the things that I would throw myself into with the excuse of, well, I'm not drinking. Well, I'm not using. So it's okay if I spend this money on this or spend this money on that. And where I ended up was in debt, right? And exhausted because I was burning the candle at both ends. But there were fun things. I remember that I wanted to make up for what I perceived as lost time with my son, who was 9 when I got sober, and he's 25 now. So he loved video games. Therefore, I needed to love video games. And of course, I had to buy every system that was out there, all the accessories. And I can remember we would play for hours, Rock Band, when it first came out. He would be on guitar. I would, of course, be on microphone, not because I have a good voice, but simply because it was the only thing I could do. Our band was called Kid Mama. Our neighbors hated us, right? Hated us. But that was something fun that I could throw myself in with him, and we were having fun. But it took me a really long time, meaning I still haven't figured out how to balance something that I like, right? Even because I'll take something that's even good for me and I'll push it past that. I'll go way past that point. Like, you should see my refrigerator. I have 1,000 magnets. I can't just buy a couple of magnets like a normal human. I have 1,000 magnets. So that learning to balance thing, I still at 15 plus years have not figured out.
I think that's something common that like when we get into something, right, we go all in. And I think that's what I was bringing up earlier about like with friends and relationships, and that line becomes very gray. And like, I go all in on my friendships. Like I am in 100%, like you're not stopping me. And that can be very challenging sometimes. And I like what Bert, you just said, like, you're going to owe me something because I'm going to do things for you, right? Like that kind of codependency thing that happens and how that can become really dangerous. So with love being in mind, right? Love being in the forefront of our mind for this conversation, what is something that you would tell your 1 year or 5 year sober self about shaping relationships? I know that's a big question. Scott, you want to start us off?
Thanks, Lane. I do. You and I both met him, Lane, multiple times. We've met the richest people in the world and the most famous people in the world. And I thought growing up in Detroit that I would have, if I had some celebrity and I had some jack, all would be okay. And then I've met those people and they're trying to figure out how to put the toe in the trigger of the shotgun to blow their brains out. And those people wanted what I had. And what I had was people that loved me and that I loved. Because when I got sober, I was unlovable and unforgivable. And love's at the bottom of all of it. Because the essence of working with somebody is, in my experience, they know that I care for them. And those men that helped me, I knew, and more importantly, I felt that they cared for me. Because in my experience around abstinence-based 12-step program, those two men had something better to do on August 20th, 1982 than spend 3 hours with a 20-year-old punk. But they showed up. And I'm forever indebted to those men. So I don't know if I came close to answering any kind of question, Lane K, but I sure as heck love you. And I'm a multi-billionaire in relationships. And relationships I treasure them. Absolutely treasure them. And I've had lifelong friends in recovery.
And I think one of the things that you do so beautifully and is you're slow and methodical and you listen, right? You give me the space to talk, to show up, right? Like, and that's what I heard. Those men gave you that space to show up and to talk, right? So you are doing exactly, you're modeling this, almost 40 years later. And our relationship has been, I don't even know now at this point, like 20 something years, where it is so, there is deep love in that. So the advice that you would give your 1 or your 5-year-old, what I'm hearing is just to continue to do what you learned, right? To be open and vulnerable and to hold space for somebody. Did everyone else hear that?
Yeah.
Everyone's shaking their head.
Yeah.
Great.
I
Thanks.
think what I also got out of Scott's share is the people that we come across in the recovery community are it's like a land of unicorns.
Mhm.
And I have this core group of women that we would see each other multiple times a week for those first 5 years of recovery. And then we all got well and we went on to do great things in different areas. And we moved to different parts of the city and we don't see each other anymore. And they're not necessarily somebody I Marco Polo with on a daily basis, like I do with you, Lane. But these handful of people that were there in my early recovery that showed up for me and held that space, they're still there, the ones that are still sober. And I know that if I were to tap them because something was happening, they would show right up. And they know that if they were tap me for something, I would show right up. And I think that's the secret sauce of this thing, is that we get in community with each other. And for me, being on the other side and helping women find themselves and work through their recovery and get that first year and get those first 5 years, like, I didn't know that I was going to have an experience with their experience and how fulfilling it was going to be for me when I saw them get their job back, get their kid back, get back on track. And then I just wanted more of it. And so I just,
there's the more.
I always want more. I always want more.
So what would you tell, this 1 or 5-year-old?
Just listening to what you all are talking about, I think what I would tell myself is that love is an action. Love is a choice, not a feeling. That blew my mind when I first heard that, because I was sort of the product of Walt Disneyland, where I was waiting for someone to save me or marry me, or then I'm going to be happy, or I'm going to get I'm going to get this job and I'm going to be happy. I'm going to get married and I'm going to be, and then all these years passed and I was never happy. So learning that I need to choose it, and sometimes I need to choose it over and over again. Love is a choice. I am choosing to love instead of hate or mock or sarcastically dismiss, which is very good for me. So knowing that, and then it goes into that paradox of powerful, and the powerlessness. You're powerless over alcohol, but now that I'm sober, especially X amount of years, I've never felt so powerful, because I have this choice now. The choice was taken away from me. So being able to have this choice is, maybe that would go back to, that's what ignites me. That's my fire, knowing that I get to choose this. And getting back to that, when I meet with my people, when I meet you all, the fact that we are talking, and I did talk about shallow and depth, but I don't care how much money you make. I don't care what car you drive. I don't care where you bought your clothes, but I do care about this 20-year-old kid who had 2 men that he can remember from 4 years ago, that he can still recall every minute of it and share that story with me right now. Mm-hmm. Knowing that I get to, I also feel like I've always carried the load alone. So all of my insecurities, all my sadness or whatever. So now that I can say, hey, Lane, can you help me carry this? Thank you, because I can't carry this alone. So just reaching out for that, learning how to ask for help, and then learning how to accept the help. And that would be the same for love. Learning how to love, and then learning how to accept the love. So those are the things that I think about now that you've got me going here.
I got you thinking, Bert.
Yes,
I got you thinking.
Yes, I don't know if I should curse you or thank you.
Matthew.
That was amazing. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to say, looking back, my 1 to 5.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off by saying be present, because when I came out of treatment, I was rightfully the most selfish person I knew, because I had to focus on me. It was me or bust, right? And I would definitely say, even though I had missed out on so many things prior to that recovery date, I missed out on a lot post recovery date, because I was so focused on me And I definitely missed out. So I would say the year 1 and year 5, be a hell of a lot more present in what's going on around you, staying safe, but, be present with what you're doing, and, looking at the love that we're, trying to accept. And, especially now, like looking back now at all the opportunities we have, because like you said, Scott, it's almost like the cool thing. Sobriety is like the cool thing now. It's a cool thing to talk about. It's the conversation that, oh, you're sober? So am I. It's like the craziest conversation now. And we have an opportunity to be a huge part of that. And, looking back to 1 and 5 going, you have no idea what's about to come, right? Like there's so much coming your way. So be present, keep your eyes open, because honestly, the best is yet to come. Like I look back at everything that happened was meant for a reason. I went through it for a reason. I may not have liked any of it, but it's there, it's happened, and, accept it and, love it. Not love the actions I went through and the bad things I did, but love it, and know that you get to become even better. I look back and people say to me, well, when you could sum it up, how would you sum it up? And I'd say, before Don Draper from Mad Men was created, he was my mentor.
No.
Like, that's what I thought adulthood was supposed to be. And then when I watched the show Sober, it was like, wow, his life took a freaking bad turn until that very last episode, right? And it's like, that's what you have to look forward to, right? Yeah. So I would say that to 1 and 5, accept the love, be present, and the best is yet to come.
So good. We are coming up on our speed round, my friends. And before we do that, I want to ask you one more insightful question around love. Is that, I think, Roberta, you just said it, but the question is, one thing that you could pass on about loving yourself. One thing. Like how, and let's get, like Scott talked about the sticky notes, the practical, like what's one thing that our listeners can do today to take action to really like start working towards loving themselves?
I would start with,
go ahead.
Alysse.
I was just going to jump in and say, start with little things. Start dating yourself. Buy yourself the fresh flowers, right? Draw yourself the bubble bath. Go and get your nails done. Take that Sunday afternoon nap. Really simple self-care things will just help you. It just makes you feel good. And so that would be my answer to that.
I love it. Thank you. All right, Scott, jump in.
To echo Bert's notion around an old timer, a long timer said to me years ago, it's really, kid, all about to love and to be loved. And the be loved part has been difficult for me. And so what I would lovingly suggest is that I am in fact worthy. I am worthy of love. I can accept it. And it started very small, and it started right here. How about this? Hey, Scott, I like your glasses. Well, no, these are the ones I don't really, because they're not really like the ones that I. And so this long timer said to me, when somebody pays you a compliment, you say thank you, and you zip it. You zip it.
So good.
That's an action that any of you in the beginning of your recovery journey, please try that. It's worked wonderful for me.
That's such a good one. Thank you for that.
I'm thinking back to me still X amount of years sober, trying to figure it out. So I feel almost like that first year. So what I was thinking about was acting as if I love myself. And, and people are like, what do you mean as if? I'm like, you act as if. So because of my low self-esteem, I have to kind of put it sideways a little, or I have to give my language some language around it until I can start acting like, wait a minute. Hey, one day I woke up, I do love myself. But right now, today I'm going to act as if I love myself. And today I'm going to act like, again, it might take me a while, but then eventually it becomes true. And I know it's about love, but that gratitude list, that always helps me. That always makes me feel, this is going to sound weird, but it makes me feel special. Like, wow, I'm so grateful. And look at all this stuff. I've got friends and I've got sobriety. You know, I like feeling like a winner. I'm not going to lie. So, you know, those are two things that have helped me.
Beautiful. Thank you. Matthew.
I don't know. You're making me think, Lane.
Hey, it's my job. Practical things. I mean, they could exercise. That's your thing.
That is, yeah. So my biggest practice would just be, you know, focus, much like Bert said, focus on yourself a bit, and at least, you know, look at internally and give yourself, you know, the feel goods. And so for me, working out was clearly my big thing. It didn't become an obsession because it's what I did for a living, but it was my break. It was my kind of putting my headphones, disappear from the world for whether it was half an hour, you know, and know that. And this is one of the things I've learned today, because I don't love all the cliche comments about exercise and fitness. You know, sweat is fat crying and blah blah blah. No, it's not. Sweat is your body regulating temperature. It's giving it the, you know, no workout is a bad workout. You know what? In those first couple of years, I had days where the last thing I wanted to do was exercise, but I needed to be by myself for an hour. And I may have finished the workout and it sucked and I hated it and I didn't feel any better, but I at least did it and I gave it to myself. So really focusing on the things that you can do for yourself, especially the, you know, exercise, because it's also that light up of the pleasure center that we're missing, right? So there's a big focus on you. And
yes.
Actually, that's the biggest one. Focus on you. But again, be present in everybody else's life. Don't be too on you.
I love it. Okay, we're at the speed round. We're going to go quickly around. I'm going to start with you, Alysse, and then Roberta, Matthew, Scott. Okay, you ready? Speed rounded it. What's on your bedside for reading right now?
Well, it's a stack like this big of books. It's
top of the pile.
I don't even know.
Okay, Roberta.
Yeah, go to Roberta.
For brown women with sharp edges and tender hearts.
Beautiful. Okay. Matthew.
I'm like Alysse. I got a stack, so I'll give you a couple because I read a few at the same time. So I've got Breakthrough by David Nurse. I just started reading yesterday. It comes out tomorrow, actually. Unforgiven by Jay Glazer, which is an unbelievable book about mental health and anxiety from this massive NFL sportscaster. It's crazy to see what he's doing and how he's suffering, and it's great. And then I just picked up, it's actually here, not on my bedside, but I got Brene Brown, Atlas of the Heart. So nice. Those are my three top right now, and I throw in a John Gordon, The Seed. So I got a stack. There's like 50
I love
more.
it. I love the stack.
They're stacked this way and they're lined up this way.
I love the stacks. Alysse, you ready or no? No. Okay.
No.
Okay. We're passing you by. Okay, Scott, what's on your bedside?
Fellow stacker, we've got Thomas Keating, Centering Prayer.
Yeah.
I've got Brene Brown's latest.
Mm-hmm.
And big fan of hers. And then on my Kindle, like I have some sort of spy novel that is my plain kind of reading. And I can't even think that I got so many, but that's what I got.
A Kindle stack too.
Yeah.
I love it. On my bedside table right now is How Your Unconscious Mind Rules Your Behavior. And I'm back in Ernest Holmes' Science of Mind. So next speed question. Prayer and meditation, only prayer or only meditation? Matthew.
Meditation.
Okay. Roberta.
Prayer.
Alysse.
Prayer.
Scotty.
First 20 years prayer, the last 20 and meditation. Prayer and meditation.
Yeah. For me, it's meditation. I forget about the prayer. It's so interesting. Okay. Waffles or pancakes? Matthew.
That's not fair. You can't do both on the same plate?
Waffles or pancakes?
I'm going to go pancakes every time then.
Okay. Alysse.
Waffles.
Roberta.
Pancakes.
Scott.
Pancakes all day.
All day waffles right here.
I knew it. I knew it.
I'm a waffle girl. Okay. Last question for the speed round is a one single word that encapsulates your recovery. One single word that encapsulates your recovery.
Grace.
Alysse.
Moxie.
Berta.
Laughter.
Matthew.
Exciting.
Peace. Wow. I'm thrilled. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, friends. Thank you for being on this journey of recovery and inspiring many thousands of people. That's what we're doing every day by not picking up a drink, not hurting ourselves, but by loving ourselves. The act of not drinking is a simple act to care for yourself and to love yourself. So thank you for being a part of this with me. And thank you for listening to Time Takes Time. Any signing off words?
Make good choices.
Thanks, everyone. Take good care.
Thank you, Lane.